Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a book that basically takes a sledgehammer to one of the biggest stories in all of history. Seriously, it's a book that asks you to take what you learned in school about the discovery of America and consider a totally different story, a much, much older one.
You know the old rhyme, right? In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. I mean, for over 500 years, that's been the story. It's the one we all know, the beginning of the European age of discovery. These three little ships landing in a new world.
Now, of course, science tells a different story, a much, much older one. The theory that you hear most often is that the first people in the Americas walked here. They were hunters who migrated from Siberia into what's now Alaska, crossing a massive land bridge called Beringia during the last ice age. A slow journey over thousands of years into an empty continent. While the book we're looking at today, Who Discovered America by Gavin Menzies and Ian Hudson, it just blows both of those stories right out of the water. It says, what if the real story isn't about land at all? What if it's a story of the sea, one that goes back way before Columbus and involves incredible seafaring cultures from all over the world?
Okay, so let's get right into it. The book starts by going right after the big one, the Bering Strait land bridge theory. The authors basically say that from a practical, real-world point of view, the whole idea is just flawed. So one of the authors, Gavin Menzies, wasn't a historian. He was a retired submarine commander in the Royal Navy. And he looked at this whole problem like a navigator, thinking about the pure logistics of it. And to him, the idea of people just trekking for 1,000 miles across a frozen wasteland, it just didn't add up.
The book really breaks it down into some simple but powerful questions. Where do these people get food? In a frozen, treeless landscape, how did they find wood to make fires to melt ice for drinking water? And maybe the biggest question of all, why on earth would anyone choose to travel north into an even colder, more brutal environment? This quote just says it all, doesn't it? It's a complete dismissal of the accepted theory. It's the author basically saying, this makes no sense, which, of course, opens the door for his own, far more dramatic explanation. So if the land bridge is out, what's left? Well, this is where we get to the book's most explosive, most talked about claim, a theory that has started arguments all over the world. This right here, this is the core of the whole thing. The book argues that in the year 1421, the Chinese Ming dynasty sent out this gigantic fleet led by Admiral Zheng He. And this fleet didn't just go to Africa and India as we know it did. No, the book says it kept going, circumnavigated the entire globe, and even left settlements in the Americas, a full 71 years before Columbus even set sail. And you have to understand, we are not talking about a couple little boats. According to the book, these treasure junks were unbelievable, some of them over 400 feet long. This was basically a floating city, carrying over 100,000 people, along with everything they'd need to explore and settle, from soldiers to horses and plants. Okay, a claim that huge needs some serious backup, right? And the authors pull together a really wide range of evidence to try and prove it, from biology, genetics, old maps, and even archaeology. Get this, over 6,000. That's the number of plants and animals that have been found on different continents where they just don't belong, all from before 1492. The book's argument is super straightforward. These things couldn't swim or fly across an ocean. They had to have been carried on ships. Then they dive into genetics. The authors point to studies that show a really significant amount of East Asian DNA in certain Native American groups. And, this is the key part, they say this genetic mixing appears to be pretty recent. Too recent to be explained by that ancient land bridge migration. And then there are the maps. The book puts a lot of weight on this one, the 1418 map. It's a Chinese map that is incredibly controversial, but it seems to show the entire world, including the Americas, with stunning accuracy. Now, if it's real, it rewrites everything we think we know about who mapped the world first. The book also looks at cultural clues, and this is where it gets really visual. It draws these striking parallels between ancient sacred sites in China and in Mesoamerica. The authors argue that the similarities in things like pyramid design and how these huge sites were laid out, well, they're just too close to be a coincidence. But here's the thing, it's not just about the Chinese. The book uses that 1421 theory as a launch pad for a much bigger idea, one that reframes all of ancient history as this constant age of global exploration by sea. The book argues that Zheng He's massive voyage wasn't some fluke. It was the culmination of literally thousands of years of people mastering the oceans. They point way back to ancient seafarers in the Mediterranean, and they even suggest that other cultures might have reached the Americas by accident long before.
Yeah, they bring up this really fascinating idea, accidental discoveries. For example, they talk about Kublai Khan's huge invasion fleets that got wiped out by typhoons off the coast of Japan. The theory is that the survivors, adrift in their wrecked ships, could have been picked up by the North Pacific Gyre. It's this massive circular ocean current, and basically carried like a conveyor belt all the way to North America.
So, what does all this mean? What's the takeaway? Well, if even a part of this is true, it doesn't just add a new page to the history books. It means we might have to throw the whole book out and start from scratch. And the author, Gavin Menzies, he knew this was going to cause a stir. He fully embraces his role as an outsider, a navigator challenging the academic world. He basically frames the whole debate as him with his practical knowledge versus a club of historians who he believes just don't want to see the evidence. So in the end, this book is asking us to completely rethink some really big ideas. It wants us to see the oceans not as giant walls that kept ancient people apart, but as highways that actually connected them. It's a testament to the idea that history isn't set in stone, and that maybe, just maybe, the accepted story isn't the whole story. And that's really the question the book leaves us with, isn't it? Whether you buy the arguments or not, it forces you to wonder. If a story as big as the discovery of America can be challenged, what other truths are out there, just waiting for someone to come along and redraw the map?